You know that phrase everyone repeats like it's some kind of wise advice? Working the night shift is easy. You just have to put up with the boredom. Yeah, I believe that. And maybe you believe it too, until you realize boredom isn't the worst thing that can happen when the world is asleep and you're the only one left, surrounded by silence and shadows. Before I start, let me warn you. This is one of those stories no one ever believes. But I've gotten used to that. If you've got a similar story, something that happened during your night shift, whether in a hospital, a factory, on the road, or, like in my case, at a gas station, God forgot, send it to us. I swear I'll read it. Maybe it'll even make me feel a little less crazy. But if you're just here to listen, then sit back and pay attention. Because after this, you might think twice before accepting that job that pays extra for working at night. I was 24 when I started at the gas station. It wasn't exactly my dream job, but it paid the bills. And honestly, I kind of liked the idea of avoiding traffic, the rush, the bosses yelling. At night, nobody bothered me. Just me, the buzz of fluorescent lights, the occasional truck rolling down the highway, and maybe some drunk looking for cigarettes. The first week was exactly that. Boring. The kind of boredom that almost puts you to sleep, but you fight it with reheated coffee and scrolling through your phone. I'd sit behind the counter, staring out the glass window at the empty lot, lit by those dim yellow lamps that never seemed strong enough. It was lonely, but tolerable, until things started to change. In the third week, something strange happened, and it was so small, so stupid, I almost ignored it. I was cleaning the chip shelf when I heard the ding of the automatic door chime. The sound it makes whenever someone walks in, except when I looked, no one was there. The door was shut, like always. I froze, still wiping the same bag of chips, trying to make sense of it. Maybe a glitch. The sensor was old, who knows? The next night, it happened again. I was at the register, turned around when I heard the ding. I spun around fast, expecting a customer. Nothing. No door opening, no wind, nothing. Just the empty lot and that sickly yellow light spilling shadows across the asphalt. It was only on the third night that I started to feel truly uneasy, because the ding didn't just happen once. It happened 3 times, within minutes of each other. Always with no one coming in. Always leaving me staring out that glass like maybe something was there, something I couldn't see. I told the manager, of course. He just laughed, said it was probably dirt on the sensor. "You scare too easy," he chuckled, giving me a pat on the shoulder. Funny thing is, I'm not that type of person. Never have been. But that week, I started feeling something I'd never felt before. The sense of being watched. I can't explain it. No broken cameras, no weird shadows, just that gut-deep impression that if I looked at the lot fast enough, I'd catch someone staring back at me. Then came Thursday. I was in front of the counter, arranging the lighters, when I heard the ding. This time, the door opened. I saw it. I lifted my head, expecting a customer. But the door opened, waited a few seconds, and slid shut again. No one came in. The sensor couldn't have done that by accident. It needed a body, someone passing through. And I swear, I saw a shadow on the glass door. Not a reflection, not a smudge, a shadow, like something walked in. I froze, then rushed to the door, yanked it open, peering outside. The lot was empty, silent, except for the buzz of the lamps. The highway, 50 yards away, was dead quiet. No cars, no living soul. Still, I was certain. Something had entered. Back at the counter, trying not to lose it, I noticed something else. The coffee machine in the corner was on. I hadn't touched it. And the smell of fresh coffee was spreading through the air. Strong, heavy. I sat down, staring at the steam rising from the machine, and thought, okay, maybe I'm just tired. Maybe I need more sleep. But the problem was, I wasn't tired that night. I was alert, and even the taste of the coffee seemed wrong, like it wasn't made for me. The next night, I showed up trying to convince myself nothing had happened. Faulty sensor, broken coffee machine, lonely guy's imagination. I repeated it like a mantra, but deep down I was nervous, because if it was just a glitch, why did I feel like I wasn't alone? Everything was calm until a little after 2 a.m. I was flipping through an old magazine behind the counter when I heard it again. Ding. The door slid open slowly. My stomach dropped. I looked up and saw it gliding open like before. Only this time, I wasn't alone. Something entered, or at least, it seemed like it did. I didn't see a face, no body, just a shape. Dark, like the shadow slipped in, but whoever it belonged to stayed outside. The air turned. Colder, and the only sound left was my own racing heartbeat. I knew I hadn't seen anyone outside. The lot was empty, but something had passed through those doors. Then, down the drinks aisle, a bottle fell. Clack. The sound echoed, glass rattling. It felt deliberate, like whatever it was wanted me to know it was there. I tried to speak. "Who's there?" My voice shook, pathetic. No answer. Just silence. I forced myself down the aisle. The bottle rolled slowly to a stop at my feet. I picked it up, set it back on the shelf, pretending I wasn't panicking, but inside I was breaking. Then I saw it. A handprint on the freezer glass. Large, smudged, as if someone had pressed their palm against it. Except I'd just cleaned that glass minutes before. I was sure. And the worst part? The print was on the inside. I stepped back, trying to breathe. The whole store felt smaller. Every shelf like a wall, every shadow heavier. I ran back to the counter and sat, eyes fixed on the door. If something left, I'd see it, but nothing happened. No door, no sound. Then, at 3:07 a.m., the chime rang again. Ding. I rushed to the entrance. The door opened and closed, and this time I saw it in the reflection on the glass. The outline of a person. Tall, broad shoulders, standing just outside. But when I pushed the door open to check, there was no one. Not even a shadow. The lot was empty. Silent, as always. Only this time, the feeling didn't fade. It got worse. I knew someone was there, standing just beyond the light, watching me. I shut the door and locked it, even though I knew it wouldn't matter if the sensor was faulty. I sat back behind the counter, tense. My eyes darted between the clock and the door, every minute dragging into eternity. At 4 a.m., I heard something else. Not a ding, not a bottle. A voice, low, raspy, a shh, coming from the snack aisle. I stood frozen. The voice was clear, but drawn out, like it belonged to someone who hadn't spoken in a long time. Shh. My whole body froze. I should have run, called the manager, dialed the police, anything, but I couldn't. I walked slowly toward the aisle, each step echoing louder than it should have. The aisle was empty, but on the floor, right in the middle, there was a ripped bag of chips, as if it had been torn open right there. And what knocked the air out of my lungs was the next detail. Inside the bag, scattered among the broken chips, was a human tooth, small, yellowed. A tooth lying among the chips. I staggered, back 2 steps, nearly toppled an entire shelf, and bolted back to the counter. I called the manager right then. He answered groggy, annoyed, but I just kept babbling. "There's something in here, I swear. The doors are opening. There are noises. There's a tooth." He only grumbled. "You need some sleep, man. I'll check it in the morning." And hung up. I wanted to drop everything and leave. But it was my job, my paycheck. And somehow, a part of me wanted to understand. So I stayed. The clock hit. 5 in the morning, and for the first time in hours, everything went silent. No dings, no whispers. I almost believed I had dreamed it all. Until I looked at the security camera behind the counter. The screen showed the feed from the station's 4 cameras, and on the aisle of the chips, there was something, a figure, standing at the end of the aisle. Tall, motionless, like a shadow darker than the others. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, looked again. The figure was still there. But when I lifted my head to check in person, nothing. The aisle was empty, but the screen now showed something else. The figure had moved closer, closer to the camera, closer to me. That was the moment I decided maybe losing this job wasn't the worst thing that could happen to me. After that night, I almost quit. But the problem with being broke is, you don't have that luxury. Rent doesn't pay itself, and my manager didn't want to hear any of my stories. "You're tired, that's all." That's what he said, as if exhaustion explained a tooth inside a bag of chips. I came back for the next shift already hanging by a thread. Brought extra coffee, put on some low music on my phone so I wouldn't feel so alone, and swore to myself that if something strange happened again, I'd just walk away. It wasn't worth it. The night started off calm. A few cars passed on the highway, all going too fast to stop. I almost relaxed, almost believed I was free. Almost. At 2:37, a car pulled into the lot. A black sedan, ordinary, nothing special. It rolled right up to pump 3. At first, nothing odd, except no one got out. I waited, 1 minute, 2, nothing. The interior lights were off, and I couldn't see the driver. I grabbed the intercom. "Sir, do you need help pumping gas?" Silence. Just the car sitting there. Then, without warning, the pump started running. The numbers climbed as if someone had put the nozzle in the tank. But I hadn't seen anyone move. It was like the car was fueling itself. I froze, watching the digits rise. $10, $15, $20. When the pump stopped, the car simply started up. It pulled away, quietly, and vanished down the dark road. I stood there, wondering if I'd lost my mind. But half an hour later, the same car came back. Same pump. Same scene. This time, I rushed to the window, desperate to see the driver. Nothing. The driver's seat looked empty. And once again, the pump worked on its own. $10, $15, $20. Tank full. Car gone. I wanted to believe. It was a coincidence that there was someone I just couldn't see. But there was something wrong with that car. It had no plates. None. Front or back. And still, it drove like any other car. The third time it showed up, close to 4 in the morning, I snapped. I worked up the courage and went to the door. When I saw the sedan pull up to pump 3 again, I stepped out into the cold night. The wind was icy, and the silence of the highway felt heavier than ever. I walked up to the car, ready to face whoever was inside. But there was no one. The driver's seat was empty. The passenger seat too. No one was in the car. And yet, the engine was running. I could hear the low hum, feel the vibration. I peered through the window and saw something on the back seat. A black folder, open. Inside, stacks of yellowed papers, like old records. Before I could focus, the pump beeped. The car had finished fueling. I stepped back, and that's when I saw it, reflected in the rear window. A face. Not inside the car, behind me. I spun around instantly, but there was no one. Just the station glowing under the buzzing fluorescent lights. When I looked back at the car, it was already pulling away, leaving the pump gliding back onto the road. I bolted inside and glued myself to the security screens. I rewound the footage to see what had just happened. But the car wasn't there. I was there, walking out, heading to the pump. And then, nothing. I was staring at emptiness. The car simply didn't exist on the recording. My skin crawled. It made no sense. I had seen it, heard it, almost touched it. But on camera, it was like I was interacting with thin air. I sank to the floor, drained, staring at the screen. And then I noticed something else. While I stood by the pump on the recording, a shadow appeared behind me. tall, motionless, just standing there, watching. And it vanished the second I turned around. I shut the monitor off. I didn't want to see anymore, because for the first time, I realized I wasn't alone, and maybe I never had been. After that night, working alone stopped being routine and became punishment. Every minute felt heavier. Every sound felt like a threat. I no longer stayed at the register the whole time. I started pacing back and forth, checking aisles, checking cameras, trying to convince myself I was in control. But I wasn't. The following night, at 2:17 a.m., the gas station lights began to flicker. First a dry crack, then the brightness breaking into flashes. The buzz of the fluorescence echoed in my head like a scream, and then everything went dark. The darkness swallowed the station, not just inside the store, but the parking lot too. The outside lights went out all at once, leaving only the blackness of the road. I froze, heart racing, gripping the counter as if I were about to collapse. Seconds later, the emergency generator kicked in. The lights came back on, dim, yellowish, casting long shadows that dragged across the shelves. Breathed in relief, but that's when I noticed. On the register's security monitor, which had rebooted on its own, something was different. A figure stood at pump 3. I couldn't see a face. It had its back to the camera, motionless, as if it had just appeared there during the blackout. And I hadn't heard a thing. No car pulling up, no footsteps. It was just there. I blinked several times, trying to understand. Looked out the window. The lot was empty. Only the glass reflection and the aligned pumps. But on the screen, the figure was still there, standing still. I was staring at two different realities. Outside, nothing. On the feed, someone. And then the figure turned. The monitor crackled, the image distorted for a moment, but I saw it. It had no face, just a pale void, a human shape without features. The air grew heavy. My entire body froze, as if the oxygen had been drained from the room. I gasped and shut off the monitor, but it was useless. The glass door's reflection showed. The same figure, standing outside. I bolted to the stockroom and locked the door. Leaning against it, I tried to convince myself it was just an electrical glitch, an illusion, a reflection. But I couldn't shake off one detail gnawing at me. Always pump 3. It was always the same spot. When I finally gathered the courage to leave the stockroom, the store was dead silent. Back at the register, I noticed a paper sitting on the counter, a fueling receipt, but no one had been inside the store, and I hadn't served a single customer. I picked it up with trembling hands. The paper was yellowed, as if it had been printed decades ago, and the name printed at the top made me drop it instantly. My own last name. I couldn't keep working. I spent the rest of the night sitting there, staring at the clock, waiting for the sun to rise. When the manager arrived, I said nothing. I just left. But as I walked out the door, I instinctively glanced at pump 3 and saw something hanging from the hose. A key. Old rusty, with a number engraved on it. 207. I don't know why, but seeing it made me certain this wasn't coincidence. It was personal. It was meant for me. I should have quit that morning. I should have said I was sick, made up an excuse, never gone back. But life doesn't work like that. Bills don't wait, and fear, no matter how suffocating, doesn't pay rent. So I went back. The following night, there I was again, behind the register, pretending it was just another shift. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Everything was wrong from the moment I stepped inside. The key. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I'd spent the entire day with that object burning in my pocket, heavy as lead. 207. That number meant nothing until I remembered. The station had an upstairs floor that used to be a roadside motel, shut down years ago. Nobody ever went up there. The stairway was locked. But now I had a key. At 3:04 a.m., when silence was absolute, and even the crickets seemed asleep. I gave in. I walked down the back hallway, pushed open the rusty door, and climbed the creaking stairs. The upstairs corridor reeked of mold and abandonment. The burnt-out bulbs left only shadows stretched across peeling walls. Numbered doors lined up like teeth in a dark mouth. 201, 202, 203, and then 207. The lock seemed like it had been waiting for me. The key turned effortlessly. The door groaned open, revealing a room frozen in time. A bed covered with yellowed sheets, a dusty tube TV, and on the nightstand, something that made me shiver. A notebook. Open. The handwriting. I recognized it immediately. Mine. I picked it up with trembling hands. The pages were filled with lines I remembered writing years ago in my personal diaries. Words that had never left my parents' house. And yet, here they were. Every intimate memory, every hidden fear, every lost note, copied. As if someone had been following my life, recording everything. The air grew thick. Somewhere, a metallic click echoed, like a door, shutting. I looked around. No one, just the warped reflection in a stained mirror. And in it, for a split second, I saw someone behind me, a faceless shadow, standing, breathing silently. I spun around, nothing. But in the mirror, the figure was still there. Closer. I ran. Stumbled down the stairs, nearly fell, and didn't look back until I was back in the brightly lit store. But even there, the smell of mold lingered, and the notebook was still in my hand. That's when I noticed something that chilled me to the bone. On the last page, a single phrase scrawled in large letters. Stop working the night shift. The ink was fresh, still wet. And the worst part? It wasn't my handwriting. I tossed the notebook into the stockroom trash and spent the rest of the night sitting on the floor, praying for sunrise. When the manager came in, I didn't wait. I quit on the spot. He didn't ask why. Maybe he already knew. Now, months later, I still don't know what I saw at that pump, or how my words ended up in that room. I've never returned to the station, but sometimes when I drive at night, I pass that road and see the glowing sign from afar. And always, always Pump 3 is lit, even when every other light is out. I don't know if it was a hallucination, a curse, or just the loneliness of the night shift messing with my head. But I learned something I need to leave you as advice. The night holds more than silence. It watches. It waits. And if you hear a click behind you, or see a reflection that doesn't match your movements, don't ignore it. Because maybe it's not just exhaustion. Maybe someone, or something, is waiting for you to make the mistake of not believing. And if that day comes, remember what I didn't in time. Not every shadow is just the absence of light. Sometimes it's someone who chose the night to finally see you. Until the next story.